Okay. All right, so we're holding on Reish Pei Beis Amid Aleph. We're starting Siman Taf Yud Ches. Din Tainus B'Rosh Chodesh Ubay Hey Seifim. The halacha of fasting on Rosh Chodesh, and you have 5 Seifim. Says the Mechaber in Sif Aleph, Rosh Chodesh Asur B'Tainus. You're not allowed to have a Tainus on Rosh Chodesh. It's interesting that I was surprised that the Mishnah Berurah doesn't bring this down. What's the makar for the Isser of a Tainus on Rosh Chodesh? The makar is because we have a pasuk. This is a Rashi. Rashi brings down the pasuk that says, "Ubiyom simchaschem umayadechem uveroshe chachechem." So you see that Rosh Chodesh has a din of moed, and since Rosh Chodesh is like a moed, you're not allowed to have a tainus. It's a Rashi in Masechtas Tainus on Tezvav Amud Beis. I was a little surprised that the Mishnah Berurah didn't bring it down. I thought he would bring it down, at least in the Shartzian. I thought he would bring it down. He doesn't bring it down. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Ois Cotton Aleph. The Mechaber said here that you're not allowed to have a tainus on Rosh Chodesh. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Va'anche kehila kedosha v'rmaiza, the kehila of worms, misanin b'Rosh Chodesh Sivan, they held a tainus on Rosh Chodesh Sivan, al hagzeroi shahayu ba'isei azman b'shas tatnu le'elaf hachamishi. They had a tainus because of the Crusades, because of everything that the kehila of worms in the surrounding area, we have a kinna about it. On Tisha B'Av, everything that they went through at the time of the Crusades, so they were geyser a tainus on Rosh Chodesh Sivan. V'ayimrim slichas v'tachnunim. And not only did they fast, but they also said slichas, and they had extra tefillas. On Pesach.
What came out on Pesach? We fast.
Right, but they had a tainus actually on Pesach. Yeah. So they had a tainus on Rosh Chodesh Sivan. Because of Ramah b'tshuva Siman test, the loyalstina minayu ba'alma af le'inyan tachanunim. Even though they did this in worms, but we don't take that on halacha lamaisa. We still are not geyser a tainus on Rosh Chodesh. Or le'inyan tainus shois, when it comes to a short tainus, if you want to fast only an hour or two during the day, but you're doing it l'shem tainus, mutter, whether or not that's mutter on Rosh Chodesh, ayin b'bir halacha. There's a somewhat lengthy bir halacha over here that discusses this whole concept of Rosh Chodesh, fasting on Rosh Chodesh, is it d'Rabbanan, is it d'Oraisa, and trying to figure out whether or not you could have a tainus shois. But we don't do a tainus of any kind on Rosh Chodesh. Now, it's interesting, this Mishnah Berurah just brought down the concept of fasting on a Rosh Chodesh, so we're going to have later, what does a chassan and a kala, do they fast if they get married on Rosh Chodesh? And we don't. The chassan and kala do not fast, even if their chassan is on Rosh Chodesh, they don't fast. An exception that's brought down sometimes at some place can say is if it's Rosh Chodesh Nisan or Rosh Chodesh Av. Now, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, first of all, a chassan or Rosh Chodesh Av, you generally speaking not going to have, right? It's the 9 days. Rosh Chodesh Nisan, there are those that say that you could fast on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Why should you fast on Rosh Chodesh Nisan? At face value, it sounds like Tarta L'Reisa. On the one hand, it's Rosh Chodesh, on the other hand, it's Nisan. So why would you fast on Rosh Chodesh Nisan? Because somebody was nifter on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Who was nifter on Rosh Chodesh Nisan?
Oh, I know.
Close though, very close. No,
Not
Nadav and Avihu. The 8th day of the Miluim was on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. That's a B'yom Hakim Es Hamishkan. That was Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and that's when Nadav and Avihu died. Now, the reason for Rosh Chodesh Av is what Shlomo Zalman just said. Aaron HaKohen died on Rosh Chodesh Av. So because of that, there are those that say that if a tainus falls out, if a chassan and a kala are getting married on Rosh Chodesh Av or Rosh Chodesh Nisan, then maybe they could fast. But we don't fast Rosh Chodesh Av or Rosh Chodesh Nisan either. Okay. Ice cotton bays, betainus, Rosh Chodesh, you're not allowed to have a tainus. Umavur la'el b'simin kuf peiches, we have explained later on, sha'afilu ochal peiros yotza. When we say that you can't have a tainus on Rosh Chodesh, what do you have to eat in order for it to be considered that you did not fast on Rosh Chodesh? If you even just ate peiros, that's called that you didn't fast. What's the chiddush over here? It seems that the chiddush over here is the ein tzarich dafka pas. Don't think that you have to wash and you have to have pas. You're not forced to have pas on Rosh Chodesh. Now, the Mishnah Berurah over here sends you to Siman Kuf Pei Ches, Siv Zayin. What's in Kuf Pei Ches? In Kuf Pei Ches is the halacha of Yalav Yavai in benching. The halacha is that if you forgot Yalav Yavai, in benching on Rosh Chodesh, you do not have to repeat benching. Why? Because you're not mechuyev to wash on Rosh Chodesh. On Shabbos or Yom Tov, you're mechuyev to wash, and therefore the benching is kavua. The benching is a part and parcel of the Yom Tov, because you're mechuyev to wash, so you're mechuyev to bench. And when you bench, you have to say Yalav Yavai. So if you benched without Yalav Yavai, there's something lacking in the Yom Tov. So you have to repeat benching. But on Rosh Chodesh, there is no chiyuv to wash. You have no chiyuv to have a suda with pas. Therefore, so too over here with this halacha, you don't have to wash. Oh, so we have, it depends when you realized that you missed Yalav Yavai. If you realized that you missed Yalav Yavai before you said Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam in the next bracha of Atay V'Meitiv, then you could say Baruch the nusach of the bracha is slipping my mind. Baruch Hanais in Rosh Chadashim Lama Yisrael Uzikarein, I think it is. That's what you say. You say it over there. If you said already Baruch Atah Hashem, then you can't make it up anymore. Okay. Siv Beis.
And then Myra, because that's not a hymn. So
Right.
Also,
Right. You never repeat Shemon Esrei in Ma'ariv if you forgot Yalav Yavai.
Is that the same concept as the bench?
I believe so. Yeah. Siv Beis. Ein Geizrin Tainus al Hatzibur Barosh Chadashim Chanukah Upurim. You're not geyser a tainus on the tzibur. Let's say they didn't have rain, so you want to be geyser a tainus. You're not geyser a tainus on the tzibur, not on Rosh Chodesh, not on Chanukah, not on Purim. Let's see the Mishnah Berurah. Is cut in Gimel in geyserin. Vim avru v'gazru, and if they transgressed this and they were geyser a tainus on the tzibur on one of those days, ein gzera sam gzera. That gzera is not a valid gzera. The gzera doesn't take place. Vein tzarich lehisanos, and you don't have to fast because it's not a valid gzera. V'chein hiskimu ha'achreinim. Now the Mechaber continues. The Mechaber says on the second line, V'im hischilu. Let's say they already started fasting. What does that mean? Shegazru lehisanos kach v'kach yomim. Let's say they were geyser to fast X amount of days. V'hischilu behem kaidem rosh chodesh afilu yom echad. So let's say they were geyser because there was no rain. They were geyser that you should fast Monday, Thursday, and Monday. And they didn't chap that the last Monday is Rosh Chodesh. So they made the gzeira to fast Monday, Thursday, and Monday. And they already fasted the first Monday. And now they chapped, wait a second, what are we going to do? The last Monday is Rosh Chodesh. So on that, the Mechaber says, Im ischilu, shegazru lehisanis kach v'kach yomim, v'hischilu behem koydem Rosh Chodesh, afilu yom echad, and they already fasted for one day before Rosh Chodesh, ein mafsikin. Now you do not interrupt the gzeira of the Tanesim, umisanin, and you do fast on Rosh Chodesh, umashlimin, and you should be mashlim the Tanis. You should fast the whole Rosh Chodesh all the way until Tzeisak HaChavim after Rosh Chodesh. Let's see the Mishnah Berurah. Ois cotton dalid v'im hischilu. If they already started fasting, kegoin, for example, shegazru al miut geshamim. They were geyser at Tainus because there wasn't the sufficient rain. V'chadaymo, or a similar such situation. Lehisanois sheni v'chamishi v'sheni. And they were geyser to fast a Monday, a Thursday, and a Monday. V'layasku adatayu, and they did not realize shebe echad mehem yochel Rosh Chodesh, that one of those days is going to be Rosh Chodesh. V'hischilu lehisanois, and they already started the days of the Tainus. Chal gzerasam b'di'evid. Their gzeira then is chal b'di'evid. Since they already made the gzeira and they already started fasting the cycle of Tanesim, now b'di'evid the gzeira is chal. Me'achar shaloi rotza b'kivan lakar levatal dina d'Rosh Chodesh. Since they never set about in their gzeira to be mevatel Rosh Chodesh. If they knew that it was Rosh Chodesh and there were guys who were tainis on Rosh Chodesh, then the gzera is not a gzera, because you make the gzera to be mevatel Rosh Chodesh. But if the gzera just it was missed and you already started fasting, so then b'di'evad we allow the gzera to take place, and they have to fast on the Rosh Chodesh, and ois katnehei umashlimin, and they have to complete the fast. Kibashar tainis, just like on any other tainis. The same halacha would apply in Chanukah and Purim. If there were guys or a cycle of Tanesim and they started before Chanukah or Purim, and now one of the days fell out on Chanukah or Purim, then you have to fast and you have to be mashlim the fast. Since you already started fasting. The Chalamayid nami have a Chanukah Purim Rosh Chodesh. Chalamayid would be the same. Uchamaydim of Arla Kamon Siman Tavkov Ayin Beis. Vedan, you should know. The Siman Tavkov Ayin Beis Mavor Ba'Achrayim. It's clear in the Achrayim. The Chol Zeh Haya Medina Be'Eretz Yisrael. This halacha that we just said is really only negaya in Eretz Yisrael. Avala Idna, but nowadays in Chutz La'aretz during Galus, the tzibur dinam ki yachid, the din of a tzibur in Chutz La'aretz has the same din as a yachid, umafsikin b'rosh chodesh, and you do interrupt the cycle of Tanesim. You would not fast, umafsikin b'rosh chodesh, you would be mafsik the cycle of Tanesim on Rosh Chodesh, umashlimin yoim acher, and you would have to take a different day, and you would have to be mashal b'tainis on a different day to make up for that day. So this halacha, says the Chavetz Chaim, only applies in Eretz Yisrael, that you're not mafsik when there were geyser or tainis on the tzibur. But in Chutz La'aretz, you would be.
What about the original Purim fast that was dafka done on Pesach?
Right. Well, we don't fast on Pesach.
No, but how would they go through that?
Oh, that Mordechai and Esther, that was considered Eis Lasses Lashem. It was a crisis on Gans Klal Yisrael, and Mordechai used his discretion to go ahead and be geyser that tainus. Even listen, if Gans Klal Yisrael is facing Kloya, you don't pull any punches.
Well, what other reason would you go to a community to fast?
Rain doesn't reach that level. I mean, rain could be very important, but it doesn't reach the level of a gzeira on Gans Klal Yisrael. I'll tell you an interesting story about a fast on Rosh Chodesh that took place before the Milchama. My father, Olav Shalom, and his family lived in Salish, and his older brother, my uncle, that's the famous Rav Asher Weiss. So Rav Asher Weiss's father, Olav Shalom, he went to Cheder in Munkach, and he was an Eloi. He was a real Eloi, and I don't know exactly who the yeshiva was in the Cheder over there. I don't know, but they were learning Psachim. Now, there's a very, very difficult sugya in Psachim, and I think it's Daf Mem Beis, is one of the longest. There's a Machlokes, the Malchamas, and other Rishayim, one of the longest Malchamas in Shas. It's a very, very difficult sugya. And my uncle and his Chavrusa decided that they're going to learn this sugya, and they're going to know it cold. Now, I heard this story from my uncle when my uncle was trying to impress upon my children that if you want to become a Talmid Chacham, one of the most important skills that you have to learn is how to learn for a long time straight without interruption. He says, to learn an hour is no kunz. To learn 2 hours is no kunz. To learn 4 hours is no kunz. He says, to learn 40 hours, that's a kunz. He says, if you want to be a Talmid Chacham, you have to be able to learn for a long time without interruption. So he tells my kids that they came to this sugya in Psachim. They decided they're going to learn it thoroughly. They learned 24 hours straight. Now, 24 hours straight, meaning, obviously, they ate something by their table. They needed the Beis HaKisei, they went to the Beis HaKisei. But that's it. They took something quick to eat, and they went weiter. 24 hours was done. They kept going. This is what my uncle told me. Oh, of course, they davened. 2 days. They go into day 3. Other guys in the yeshiva came and said, the Gemara says you can't go 3 days without sleep. The Gemara says if you go 3 days without sleep, the person chas v'shalom die. You can't go 3 days without sleep. They were almost finished the sugya, and it's getting to night on the 3rd day. And guess what? They're starting to fall asleep. It was winter. So they went outside into the snow, and they took their shoes off, and they put their feet in the snow, and they're finishing up the sugya. My uncle says the next thing he knew, he woke up in a strange bed next to a fire. Turns out that there was an almana that lived like 2 houses away from the Bismedrish. She looked out her window, and she sees 2 bakrim passed out in the snow. So she called over some guys. They picked them up, carried them into the house. She put them next to the fire on 2 beds, and they woke up. Okay, fine. The next day they go back to Cheder. The Yeshiva calls them in, and the Yeshiva calls in all the bakrim. The Yeshiva calls them in, and he's giving them a bechina, and he says, who could be masber pshat in this machlokes rishonim? And nobody says anything. He says, nobody knows pshat? So finally my uncle raises his hand, and my uncle says, he gives the chavrusa's name. I forgot the name escapes me, also a famous person. He says, he knows pshat. So the Yeshiva says, yeah, he knows pshat? He says, yeah. How do you know that he knows pshat? Because he's my chavrusa, we learned it together. So you also know pshat? He says, yeah, but ask him. So he asked the chavrusa told the Yeshiva pshat. The Yeshiva says, ja, sehr gut. Aber, ruf va de kecher. Call the cook. So they call the cook. The cook comes up, and the Yeshiva tells the cook, no food, no meals on Sunday for the Yeshiva. Why not? He says, the Olam learned the sugya. They don't know pshat in the machlokes rishonim. No food on Sunday. No meals. So my uncle looks at the Yeshiva and says, but wait a second. My chavrusa and myself, we did know pshat. So he says, yeah, this is gerecht. He says, you and your chavrusa, he tells the cook, they can have bread and marmalade. So he looks and he says, oh wait. First my uncle said, you can't do that. Sunday's Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh b'tarnish fasting. Can't fast on Rosh Chodesh. So the Yeshiva said, B'nei HaYeshiva was lernt und ken nicht. They learn and they don't know. Megmin fasten on Rosh Chodesh oichet. They could fast on Rosh Chodesh also. So then my uncle said, but we did know pshat. He said, you know pshat, you could have bread and marmalade. So my uncle looked at him and said, B'nei HaYeshiva was lernt und ken yeah. We did know. Essen minar broit and marmalade for Chodesh? We should only eat bread and marmalade? So the Yeshiva said, yeah, if you knew pshat and they don't know pshat, then you're also shuldik. If you know pshat, how come they don't know pshat? You should have sat them all down. You should have taught them. So you only get bread and marmalade. So my uncle finished off the story, and he said, try that in American yeshiva nowadays. The parents would come, they would close down the yeshiva, they would sue you for child abuse. Who knows what they would do to you? Yeah. Usher Weiss's father. Yep. Fasting on Rosh Chodesh. Yep. Okay. Siv Gimel. Yachid shekibel olav tainus kach v'kach yomim. Let's say an individual was makabel a tainus. So an individual was makabel, I'm going to fast for 7 days. It was makabel a tainus. Upaga by Rosh Chodesh. And now it turns out that one of the days is Rosh Chodesh. So we just saw the halacha that if they're geyser on the tzibur a tainus, if it hits Rosh Chodesh, it's not exera. Unless they didn't realize it was one of the days in the cycle and they already started fasting. Now, how about a yachid? So says the mechaber, yachid shekibel alav tainus kach kach yom apagah b'Rosh Chodesh, oy shekibel alav lehisanos b'Rosh Chodesh. Or even worse, the yachid was mekabel on himself beferish to fast on Rosh Chodesh. So says the mechaber, it depends. Im kibloi b'loshen kabbalas tainus ba'alma. If he was just mekabel the tainus on himself, which means he's mekabel on himself to fast. Einoi tzarech hatara. He doesn't need hatara on that kabbalas tainus. Hatara is like hataras nedarim. He doesn't need hatara on that kabbalas tainus. That kabbalas tainus doesn't count. It's a worthless Kabbalah's Tainus because you were Makabal Tainus to fast on Rosh Chodesh. You can't do that. But v'im kibloi alav b'lashayin harei alai shuhu lashon neder. If he makes a neder, now the Mishnah Berurah is going to explain that the not the Mishnah Berurah. I'm sorry, it wasn't the Mishnah Berurah. I saw it brought down other places. What does this mean that he was makabel b'lashon neder of harei alai? It means that he said harei alai achilas gimel yomim kikarbon. The eating of 3 days, or 5 days, or 7 days, or 1 day, whatever it is, should be usher to me like a carbon. Let's remember the key difference, because this plays in over here. The key difference between a shvuah and a neder. A shvuah is when somebody takes an oath, he makes a shvuah that he's going to do something, or he's not going to do something. So it's on him, right? He's putting on himself an obligation. So a guy makes a shvuah or a Kabbalah's Tainus, I'm being makabel on myself that I am going to fast. A neder is I'm answering the chayfetz. I'm answering the thing. So in other words, a shvuah, let's say, would be I'm making a shvuah that I will not eat that cookie. Right? So now I have on myself an obligation, a prohibition. I am not allowed to eat that cookie. A neder would be I'm answering that cookie on myself like a carbon. So now I can't eat the cookie, but the reason I can't eat the cookie is because I answered the cookie. I made the cookie hegdish. So to me, that cookie is hegdish. So yeah, I can't eat it because it's hegdish. But it's not that I put a tzivoy on myself that I will not eat it. I put an isser on the chayfetz. I didn't put an isser on me. I put an isser on the chayfetz. So what does it mean when a guy makes a neder that he won't fast? Not that he makes an obligation on himself, I will not eat on Tuesday. What he does is he answers food on himself for Tuesday. Eating the food for Tuesday is to me like a carbon. If he does that, tzarech hataras chacham. Now you need a hataras chacham. Now you have to be matir neder, and you need a hataras chacham. And the Mishnah Berurah will explain why. V'ayin b'yardei siman reish tes vav siv gimel. Now let's see the Mishnah Berurah. Ice cut and vav on the previous page on reish pei beis amud aleph. Ay b'rosh chodesh. Let's say a yachid was makabel a tainus on himself. So the Mechaber gave two cases. Either he was makabel on himself to fast for X amount of days, or he specifically mentioned, I'm going to fast on Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh, says the Chavetz Chaim, Zuv ein tzarech loimer zu ktani. This is a case of saying two cases where the second one is more obvious than the first one. In the first case, the Mechaber said, a yachid was makabel on himself. Let's say he said, I'm going to fast for 7 days. And Rosh Chodesh happened to be in the 7 days. So guess what? The Mechaber says it doesn't count. That's not a valid Kabbalah's Tainus, because Rosh Chodesh is in there. The second case is where a person was makabel on himself specifically to fast on Rosh Chodesh. That's even more obvious that it doesn't count, right? So this is zu ve'ein tzarech loimer zu. The first case, it's not a valid Kabbalah's Tainus. Certainly it's not a valid Kabbalah's Tainus in the second case. So zu ve'ein tzarech loimer zu ktani. The bekabbalah beferish b'Rosh Chodesh, if somebody specifically was makabel to fast on Rosh Chodesh, afilu gzeres hatzibur loimahani. Even by a tzibur that doesn't work. K'moishe kasavnu. I efsher, or maybe you could say it's not zu vein tzarech loimazu. I efsher the nakat mishum seifa. Maybe the reason the Mechaber throws in this case of when somebody specifically was makabel tainus on Rosh Chodesh is because of the chidush of the second of the coming halacha of the seifa. Da'afilu bazeh, even in such a case, im hoitzi b'loshen neder chal, that by a neder the Mechaber says you need hataras tedarim. So the chiddush is that if you made a neder specifically to fast on Rosh Chodesh, you still need hataras tedarim. Even in that case, you need hataras tedarim. Eis kat zayin einoi tzarech hatara. If it's just a Kabbalah's Tainus, you don't need a Torah. The dafka b'tzibur, only by a tzibur. The alima gzerasam, where the gzera on a tzibur is very powerful. Hechmiru, there were very machmer, begozra kach v'kach yomim, when they were geyser on a cycle of tanesim, of X amount of days, upoga behem Rosh Chodesh, and one of them happens to be Rosh Chodesh, v'chanal, like we saw before, then we're machmer that you have to fast even though it's Rosh Chodesh. But by a yachid, we're not going to make such a thing. By a yachid, we're not so machmer. You know, it was brought home to us. You want to know how powerful it is, the gzeira of a tzibur. There were many times while Rav Moshe Zechariah was still alive, where other gedolim came to him and asked him that they should be geyser a chatzi yom tainus. Let's say something was happening in Eretz Yisrael, or some other tzara was going on. They wanted that Rav Moshe should be geyser a chatzi yom tainus, and Rav Moshe steadfastly said no, he wouldn't do it. And they asked him why, and he said, "You want to be geyser a tainus because you want to generate a schus for Klal Yisrael. What's going to happen if I'm geyser a tainus and 100,000 people listen to the gzeira and they fast? And then there's 10 people who say, who are these people to be geyser a tainus? I'm not listening. And they eat. I'm not sure which one is bigger. Is the schus bigger of the people that fasted, or is the kitrug bigger of the people who didn't listen?" He says, so don't do something. You want to generate a schus, but you might be generating a kitrug. He says, so leave it alone. Don't make a gzeira. Instead, he would say, send around a message, put up a sign, tell them that they should put up a sign, that they should say extra tehillim, that they should be machzik in limud Torah, that they should, sometimes he would say that they should say tefillah b'tzibur. Sometimes, I remember 1 or 2 times even where he said that those people who are bekayach and they feel that a chatzi yom tainus is something that they could do, so it would be nice to make a chatzi yom tainus. But to be geyser a chatzi yom tainus, he wouldn't do it. The same thing, they came to Reb David. They came to Reb David years ago when there were big troubles in Eretz Yisrael, and they asked him that they should make a new thing, that every minyan should say after davening, they should say a certain kapitel of Tehillim. And David said, why? Why are you asking me to do this? He said, because of the tzaras in Eretz Yisrael. So he said, that's why we have the long tachnon. We have the long tachnon on Sheni v'Chamishi, because of tzaras in Eretz Yisrael. He says, so send out a thing that people should have more kavanah about a long tachnon. But don't ask me to make a gzeira on the tzibur, to add things. He says, because then if somebody doesn't keep it, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a kitrig. We don't look to make a kitrig on Klal Yisrael. Okay, 2 lines from the bottom here. Kasra poiskim, dein tzarach lefraya oisai tainus shalechol olav klal. If a yachid is makabel tainus on himself, just with a plain lashon of kabbal's tainus, he shouldn't think that he was makabel tainus on Rosh Chodesh, he wasn't able to fast on Rosh Chodesh, maybe now he has to fast a different day instead. The Achrayim say no, because the kabbal's tainus on Rosh Chodesh was not a valid kabbal's tainus at all. V'nirali, on the bottom line, the Chavetz Chaim says, V'nirali the dafka kishekibel alav tainus sheni v'chamishi shal kol hashana oy shal kama chadashim ve'era behem Rosh Chodesh. That's only true if what the person was makabel was, let's say a person said, I'm going to fast sheni v'chamishi for 3 months. And they didn't realize that Rosh Chodesh falls out on a Monday or a Thursday in the 3rd month. So then the Chavetz Chaim says, over there you don't have to make up the tainus. Hasam shaykh loymar, over there it makes sense to say, de'ein kayach kabbalosai chal klal al yom zeh shehu asar b'tainus. That his Kabbalah was never chal on Rosh Chodesh at all. Umemele ein tzarich lefraya avur yom echad, yom acher. So he doesn't have to make up a different day. Aval, however, kisha kibal of stam kach v'kach yomim lehisanos. Let's say somebody says, I'm going to fast 40 days. So now he was makabel on himself a number of days. Ve'era behem shabbosais v'yom tov Rosh Chodesh, and now some of those days ended up being Shabbos or Yom Tov or Rosh Chodesh. Tzarich ledalgan, he has to skip those days, ulahashliman achakach, and he has to make them up. The haloi hayom miyuchid b'ma'amar Rosh Chodesh klal. Because over there, it wasn't miyuchid on Rosh Chodesh, it was miyuchid a certain amount of days. So that he has to make up. In the first case, over there, he doesn't have to make it up. Because you are makabel, not that I'm going to fast 40 days. You are makabel, I'm going to fast Sheni v'chamishi for 3 months. One of those Sheni v'chamishis was on Rosh Chodesh. So that doesn't count. And you don't have to make that up. Because that Sheni, that Yom Sheni, or that Yom Chamishi never had a valid Kabbalah's Tainus on it. But when you make a Kabbalah's Tainus, I'm going to fast for the coming 40 days. Well, now you are makabel 40 days. You can't fast Rosh Chodesh. That you can't do. It's all right. So you got to skip it. You got to make it up another day. Ois Katan Ches. If you are makabel the tainus with a lashon of a neder, harei alai tzarich ataras chacham. Then you need to do ataras nedarim. The nedarim chalim af al davar mitzvah, because the neder is chal even in the face of a mitzvah. And the reason for that is what I told you before. If you make a Kabbalah's tainus like a shvua, so you made an obligation on yourself. So you went ahead and you said, I'm going to fast on Rosh Chodesh. Well, guess what? You can't fast on Rosh Chodesh. You're prevented by the dinim of Rosh Chodesh for fasting on Rosh Chodesh. So your shvua can't be chal. But when you say, Harei alai achilas yom zeh kekarban, so you didn't, it's not that you have a mitzvah that's contradicting your Kabbalah. It's two different things. You have a prohibition. You have Hilchas Rosh Chodesh that says that you're not allowed to fast on Rosh Chodesh. But you're still not allowed to eat that food. You still made that food a korban. You made that food hegdish. So you can't eat that food. But it's not that you have two things on yourself that are sides of each other. So by a neder, when you say harei alai, you need hataras nedarim, because the neder is chal even in the face of the isser of Rosh Chodesh, because it's two different things. That food is not prevented from getting the din of a hegdish because Sunday happens to be Rosh Chodesh. That food could still have the din of hegdish. Now it has the din of hegdish on Rosh Chodesh. You can't eat it. But you're not allowed to fast on Rosh Chodesh. So what do you have to do? You need hataras nedarim. You need hataras nedarim to release yourself from the neder, so that food shouldn't be like hegdish anymore. So you should be able to eat it. But that's why it's chal. So the nedarim chalam af al dvar mitzvah. Umiu, but you should know muchach bi Yeridea siman reish tes vav sif beis is very clear in Yeridea. The mechuyev lishol al nidrei kedei shelo yisane. The neder is chal, but you're mechuyev to go get a taras nedarim. Umavur shamai the peischin loy behem. That the very din that you're not allowed to fast on Rosh Chodesh is going to be the Pesach for the neder. In order to make a taras nedarim, you need either a Pesach or a charata. You need a specific type of regret that I would have never made that neder. You go to the chacham, you say, I want you to release me from the neder. On what grounds? So on the grounds, v'ayimrim loy, ilu samta libcha sheyivku b'seichas man hazeh, elu hayomim lo hayisa umatirin loy. The chacham says, well, you made a neder that you're going to fast for the coming 40 days. If you would have realized that one of those days is Rosh Chodesh and you're not allowed to fast on Rosh Chodesh, would you have made such a neder? And the guy says, no, of course not. Okay, so that's a valid Pesach on the neder. So now we could be matir the neder. Okay, we'll stop over here. All right. The rest he has to do, absolutely. Well, that actually, you know what? Now that you mention it, I think there's a machlokes on that. One second, I think even the Dirshu might have brought it down. Yeah, and if you look at footnote number 11, the Gama Yomim she'ein iser lehisanis behem, even the days that it's not also to fast, kasav lekaman shemavur b'shulchan aruch shehutru al yedei ataras nedarim zu. Once you're matir the neder completely. Ubetama davar kasav ashach sheneder shehutar miktsasei hutar kuloi. No, I wouldn't say he has to start from scratch. I would say that his whole neder is gone.
It's gone, but if he wants to,
yeah.
he has to make it
Right,
clear.
right, right.